Hello. So today I want to talk about a theory that's going to prove controversial to some people. There are many talks of conquered peoples, the Kurds, the Circassians, the Italians for most of their history, people who have not been ruled by themselves. But often a nation is omitted from this list, a nation that had not been ruled by themselves for nearly 700 to 800 years, the English nation. The English story is a tragedy song that stands off in muted silence. First, we have to define what the English people are. Britain had originally been inhabited by Celtic tribes and spoke Celtic languages like the Welsh. Now they were conquered by the Romans and were a Roman province for centuries, creating a hybrid Celto-Roman culture. But the Romans left a negligible genetic footprint. After the withdrawal of the Roman army in the early 5th century, Saxon mercenaries were invited to defend it against the Picts, ancient Scots. Ultimately, these Anglo-Saxon mercenaries turned, and what we know as England was conquered and extensively settled by 4 Germanic tribes, the Angles, Saxons, Jutes, and Frisians, all from northwestern Germany. This gave birth to the English nation we know today, and the English language, names, counties, and traditions all come from them. At first it was thought that the Germans massacred all the native Celts and simply took over the land, but genetics shows otherwise. Genetic studies shows that it was more of an assimilation where the weakened Celts assimilated into the dominant German culture. Matrilineally, England is almost entirely Celtic, but in the patrilineal side they are about 30 to 38% German, as most German conquerors were male. That's the English people, born of marriage between the German man and the Celtic woman. There were some Viking invasions from the 8th to 10th century, but they left a negligible trace, with only 7 to 9% of Y chromosome markers being Nordic, and that too is debatable because the Germans that settled England came from northern Germany and were genetically near identical to Danes. So the Viking part too probably comes from the Germans. The English people are thus the descendants of the native Brythonic Celts and the Anglo-Saxon settlers. So what's the great tragedy, you may ask? Well, it's the Norman conquest of Anglo-Saxon England. The English king, Harold Godwinson, defeated the Norwegian king, Harald Hardrada, in the north and had a depleted army. Duke William the Bastard of Normandy invaded from the south and defeated Harold at the Battle of Hastings. The old English aristocracy was completely disenfranchised and stripped of their lands and titles. They became lower-class peasants mostly. The Norman vogue began with the elite nearly exclusively speaking French. It would not be until the 100 Years' War and the early 15th century when the elite gave up French and took up English out of spite for the French enemy. But the Normans didn't have a significant genetic impact on the country, as there were only 8,000 to 12,000 out of a country of 2 million. They did, however, have a huge cultural and political impact. This was the origin of the class obsession of the English nation, an obsession and paranoia with class that exists to this day. Even today, people in England with Norman surnames earn more and are higher status, while people with Irish or English surnames are lower class. The English obsession of not class mixing or marrying down likely came from the Norman elite. For a Norman elite, to marry down was to marry a Saxon and to go lower in the hierarchy. Class was not just a matter of wealth, it was also a matter of blood, a lighter version of the Hindu Brahmin obsession of not marrying down caste. England, to my fascination, it seems has not been ruled by an Englishman for a very long time. All their rulers were foreigners. The House of Normandy came from, Normandy. The Plantagenets were Frenchmen from Anjou. The Tudors were Welshmen. The Stuarts were Scottish. Duke William of Orange was Dutch, the House of Hanover was German, and the current House of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, also known as Windsor, is also German. Now, real power went into the hands of Parliament with the Act of Union in 1707, and England has been an oligarchy ever since. But this oligarchy remained, and mostly remains to this day, primarily Norman with some Jewish intermarriage. The Rothschilds married into the English nobility in the 19th century. The English people, the common people, always had a great love and respect for the gentry, the monarchy, and the aristocracy. It was the mark of a good Englishman to be a loyal subject of the crown and to respect hierarchy. But this love has never been reciprocated. E. Michael Jones one time said that it was English tradition to treat workers poorly. I think this has a lot to do with the English elites being aliens themselves to the native people. The Germans had and still do have a great tradition of respecting labor. It was the first country to begin the welfare state, enact fair labor laws, and a culture of small businesses. The Scandinavian countries quickly followed. England, however, lagged behind, and the English aristocracy fought tooth and nail to deny workers a fair hearing. English wages, working conditions were all terrible, and they never got the benefit the Germans did. Germany and the Nords were ruled by their own, and the local elites had a feeling of love and kinship with the people. The English nobles perhaps never did accept the people as their own, and frequently allied with other alien groups like the Jews to keep the common Englishmen down. They were the first country in Europe to import foreign labor to drive down wages and divide the working class. They imported masses of Irish into the country in the 19th century. German, Dutch, and Scandinavian elites did no such thing. A similarity to the English situation can be found in France, where the common French were Celtic Gauls and the elites were Germanic Franks. But the Frankish settlement was much more extensive and had a massive genetic impact compared to the Norman settlement, and most of the French nobility was overthrown during the French Revolution. The English never had such an overthrow of the elite. The big lesson to take away from all this is no matter what, never let your country be ruled by foreigners of any stripe. Any nation that comes to be ruled by a foreign elite suffers, be it the Jews in the United States, the Normans in England, the Szlachta in Poland, or the Bolsheviks in Russia. Such arrangements never work out well. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and if you like my content, please share and subscribe.